those of you who haven't seen the film yet, I will give you a detailed account of Kantara Chapter 1. The word Kantara refers to a secretive jungle, a mystery woodland. The story is centered on a forest called Kantara, and the events of the film take place there. Thousands of years ago is when the film starts. It is revealed at this point in history that Panjurli Dev and Gulika Dev were sent to earth by God in accordance with his desire. Upon their arrival, these two deities settled in a certain forest which later became known as Kantara. Kantara is a vast and mysterious forest, but outside this forest lies a large kingdom, ruled by a king named Vijendra. This king is extremely cruel. Not only does he oppress the common people, but he also takes whatever he desires by force. The kingdom itself is called Kadamba, a region bordered on one side by the Kantara forest and on the other by the sea. The coastal location makes Kadamba a hub for trade. However, merchants coming from outside often require many workers or slaves for their business. King Vijendra takes advantage of this. He captures the poor and helpless people from surrounding areas, first torturing them and then selling them to the foreigners. By doing so, he earns significant profit while spreading fear among the populace. One day, while bathing in the sea, King Vijendra notices an old man fishing at the far end of the water. This elderly man is actually from Kantara forest and his name is Maikara. He is simply trying to catch fish to feed himself. King Vijendra, known for his cruelty and hatred towards the poor, cannot tolerate seeing a humble man fishing in the sea. Enraged, he orders his soldier to capture Maikara and prepare to execute him. Just as the soldiers are about to attack, several spices fall from Maikara's bag. The king picks up the fallen spices and realizes that these could be sold to foreigners at a very high price, significantly boosting his trade profits. Curious, King Vijendra asks Maikara who he is and where he got the spices from. Maikara explains that he lives in the Kantara forest, where the spices naturally grow. It is important to note that the Kantara forest lies directly opposite the king's kingdom, making it easily visible and within reach of his greed. But what could a king possibly find inside a forest? King Vijendra had never ventured into Kantara forest, thinking there was nothing worth his time. But once he learns that Kantara is rich with resources and treasures, he hatches a plan to enter the forest and seize control of it. King Vijendra has a young son named Rajshekhar. Taking his son along with his entire army, the king marches into the forest, intent on conquering it. However, as they move deeper into the forest, they are confronted by Panjurli Dev, who warns the king not to go any further. Ignoring the warning, the king presses on. In response, wild bulls appear and trample Vijendra's soldiers. Yet the king refuses to stop, venturing even deeper until Panjurli Dev personally confronts him and ultimately kills him, protecting the forest from Vijendra's greed and cruelty. Witnessing this, the original inhabitants of Kantara arrive and see the king's death. These tribespeople belong to the same clan from which the movie's main hero will later emerge. Meanwhile, Vijendra's young son Rajshekhar survives. He flees into the forest in tears and eventually collapses from exhaustion. Other tribespeople find him and nurse him back to health. These are the Kadapa tribe, distinguished by their black clothing and knowledge of Tantra and dark arts. Unlike the forest's original inhabitants who worship Panjurli Dev and Gulika Dev, the Kadapa use mystical powers to enhance their abilities and attempt to control the deity's power. Grateful for saving his life, Rajshekhar befriends the Kadapa tribe, helping them whenever he can. As time passes, he grows up to become the new king of Kadamba. Rajshekhar has two children, a son named Kulshekhar and daughter named Kankavati, who is referred to as Kanak in the movie. Kanak is born weak, unable even to move her hands and legs. Distraught, the king is visited by the Kadapa tribe, who offer to nourish and heal her with their powers. Soon Kanak recovers and is returned safely to the king. Meanwhile, in Kantara forest, the original tribes live peacefully, worshipping Panjurli Dev and Gulika Dev. One day, while foraging for food, a woman from the tribe discovers a small child in a well, guarded by a tiger. She rescues the child and raises him as her own, naming him Burma. This child grows up to become the movie's main hero, portrayed by Rishabh Shetty. As time progresses, Rajshekhar's children grow up. Rajshekhar appoints his son, Kulshekhar, as the new king. However, Kulshekhar proves to be cruel, disrespectful, and immoral. He disrespects his parents and his guru, neglects the welfare of his subjects, indulges in excessive drinking, and mocks the existence of God. This sets the stage for the central conflict of Kantara Chapter 1, where the forest, its deities, and the next generation of heroes will face challenges against greed, cruelty, and dark ambitions. Since childhood, Rajshekhar, Kulsekhar's father, had been telling his children stories about Kantara forest. Due to the traumatic events Rajshekhar had witnessed, he feared Kantara and wanted his children to never enter the forest. To keep them away, he told them myths about monsters living in Kantara, hoping they would stay safe. However, when Kulashekar grows up and becomes king, he decides to venture into Kantara for a hunting expedition. He takes his army and several friends and marches deep into the forest. During the hunt, he kills a monkey and a deer, but before he can continue, he and his soldiers are suddenly attacked. The attackers begin eliminating the soldiers one by one. Alarmed, Kulashekar and his friends flee, leaving behind the trapped soldiers. It is soon revealed that the attackers are the indigenous tribes of Kantara forest, and among them is Varma, the main hero of the movie, played by Rishabh Shetty. Burma and his companions see that the soldiers have been defeated except for one who is unconscious. They carry the animals they hunted and the remaining soldier back to their village. The soldier wakes up and introduces himself as Chena, explaining that he was a companion of the soldiers killed by Burma's group. Burma asks Chena where they come from. Chena tells them about the Kadamba kingdom, where the new king Kulashekar rules and where they had come for hunting. When the attack occurred, the king and his friends fled, leaving soldiers behind. Curious, Burma tells Chena that they are all forest tribes people, but they have never heard that Kadamba is a highly advanced kingdom. They want to see and learn how developed the outside world is. Chena has no choice but to take Burma and his companions to the kingdom. To blend in, Burma and his group wear the uniforms of the soldiers they defeated. This allows them to enter Kadamba kingdom without suspicion. Once inside, they are amazed by the wealth and grandeur of the kingdom and begin exploring. However, the soldiers of the kingdom grew suspicious and capture Burma and his friends, taking them to the king. While in the palace, Burma meets Princess Kanak and is instantly impressed by her. In front of King Kulashekar, Burma introduces himself, revealing that they all come from Kantara forest. The name Kantara strikes fear in the king and the court, as they believe monsters live there. Fearing the monsters, King Kulashekar orders them imprisoned and plans to kill them. However, Rajshekhar, his father, disagrees, refusing to harm the people of Kantara. Instead, they decide to sell them to merchants at the port, as foreign traders regularly visit and require slaves. Kulashekar assigns a man who is addicted to tobacco to handle the sale. Burma cleverly gives him Kantara tobacco, knowing he will indulge in it, which forms the beginning of a plan to outsmart him. Burma cleverly gets the tobacco-addicted man drunk, allowing him and his companions to escape from the palace and head straight back to Kantara. On their journey, Burma observes various aspects of the Kadamba kingdom, especially the port where a large spice trade occurs. He realizes that the spices from Kantara fetch high prices in the market, giving him an idea to expand his village's prosperity. Upon reaching Kantara, Burma begins cultivating the land and transports the spices from the forest to the port for sale. The trade brings great wealth, and in exchange for his goods, Burma acquires weapons, fine clothes, food, and other valuables, improving the lives of his people significantly. Kantara begins to thrive under Burma's leadership. However, Princess Kanak, Kulashekara's sister, learns of the trade. She does not prohibit Burma and his people from trading but insists that they pay taxes as the port belongs to her kingdom. Burma, however, refuses, asserting that everything belongs to nature, the land, air, and resources, and trade is simply part of that natural order. Kanak admires Burma's principles and slowly grows fond of him, though Burma maintains distance, knowing that a princess and a tribal leader cannot easily unite. As prosperity grows in Kantara, the spices begin to dwindle, so Burma ventures deeper into the forest with his companions to find more. They reach the territory of the Kadpa tribals, the black-clad group practicing dark magic and sorcery. Upon realizing intruders have entered, the Kadpa tribals attack, killing one of Burma's companions. Just as Burma himself is about to be killed, the divine tiger, seen earlier in the film protecting the infant Burma, appears and defends him and his group, forcing the Kadpa tribals to retreat. Burma and his companions return to their village and narrate the entire encounter to the tribal leaders. The elders explain that the Kadpa tribals had once sought refuge in Kantara, but they abused the trust, attempting to capture the gods Panjurli and Gulika to steal their powers. Their dark magic caused death and decay in the forest, prompting divine intervention through the sacred tiger who drove the Kadpa tribals away. Meanwhile, in the Kadambar kingdom, King Kulashekar discovers that Burma and his companions were not captured or sold as slaves, but returned to Kantara and continued trading at the port. Enraged, he blames Princess Kanak for letting this happen and decides to attack Kantara and annihilate its people. Kulashekar's father, Rajshekhar, tries to stop him, but Kulashekar cunningly poisons his father, rendering him unconscious for 2 days, clearing the way for his vengeful plan. Kulashekar prepares his army to invade Kantara, setting fire to the forest and brutally attacking the villagers, killing elders, women, and children mercilessly. Hearing the cries, Burma and his companions rush back to find the devastation. At that moment, Golikadev, the divine entity, merges with Burma, granting him immense power in an angry, destructive form. Burma, now embodying Golikadev, annihilates Kulashekhar's soldiers and ultimately kills King Kulashekar himself. After the battle, Golika Dev separates from Burma, who returns to his normal self. The village surveys the destruction and mourns the losses. 2 days later, Rajshekar awakens to see his son Kulashekar dead and learns the full story of the massacre and Burma's divine intervention. Heartbroken but resilient, he reclaims his role as king and continues to govern the kingdom. At this point, King Rajshekar begins constructing a temple dedicated to Lord Shiva within his palace. But when the Shivalinga is installed, it mysteriously breaks on its own. Alarmed, the king's chief priest explains that this is the result of divine anger caused by the actions of his son Kulashekar. The priests advise that to restore harmony, Rajshekar must seek reconciliation with the people of Kantara, as only then will the divine wrath subside. Following this advice, Princess Kanak, Rajshekhar's daughter, travels to Kantara, carrying a message of peace. She approaches Burma and his companions, extending a hand of friendship. However, Burma, distrustful of her past betrayals, refuses her offer, citing the devastation caused to his people and the anger of the gods, particularly Panjali Dev. Kanak assures that she understands the losses but insists that they now seek forgiveness from Panjali Dev and offers an invitation. She wants the tribal deity to be installed in the Shiva temple at the royal palace so that the gods remain close to Lord Shiva and receive divine blessings. Burma agrees and the people of Kantara carry Panjali Dev's stone to the palace, where it is installed with great ceremony. Peace is temporarily restored and the two communities begin to reconcile. However, the next morning, a mysterious illness strikes the children of the tribe, leaving them on the brink of death. A ritual reveals that the gods have been captured, and the culprits are none other than the Kadba tribals, who had long sought to imprison the deities and steal their powers. It becomes clear that the Kadba tribals, along with Rajshekar and Princess Kanak, have orchestrated this plot. Years earlier, they had manipulated the royal family to advance their dark magic plans, even raising Kanak with their mystical powers and secretly learning from Burma's own divine essence, stealing strands of his hair and nails to strengthen their spells. Upon discovering this treachery, Burma mobilizes his tribe, arming everyone for war. They march into the Kadamba kingdom, where Rajshekar, Kanak, and their forces are fully prepared. A massive battle ensues, with hundreds falling on both sides. In the chaos, Burma faces Rajshekar directly, but the princess uses her black magic to enhance her father's strength, giving him a temporary advantage. At the crucial moment, an old man named Makara, first seen fishing at the start of the story, arrives. His divine nature is hinted throughout the film, and he guides Burma to a sacred river and cave. Inside the cave, Burma discovers a Sivalinga with a Trishul beside it, representing Lord Shiva. As Burma approaches, a monstrous creature resembling Nandi attacks him. The battle is fierce, but Burma grasps the Trishul, and in that moment, Shiva's divine powers flow into him. Simultaneously, a great serpent coils around him, and Golikadev manifests within Burma, merging his tribal strength with divine wrath. Together with the tiger deity, Burma enters the battlefield, attacking the Kadba tribals and Rajshekhar's army. Princess Kanak's interference initially diverts Golikadev's attack, but he calls upon his sister Chaundi, who joins. Together they defeat Kanak and Rajshekar, bringing the battle to an end. The people of Kantara are victorious, and Panjuli and Golikadev are freed from the Kadba tribal's control. To celebrate, the tribe performs the Bhutakola ritual, where both Panjuli and Golikadev are honored, with Burma performing Golikadev's role, and after the ceremony, Burma returns to the very well where he was found as a child, disappearing from sight. This signifies that Burma was sent by the divine, completing his mission to protect Kantara before returning to his celestial origin. And with this, the movie concludes, leaving the door open for a sequel to continue the saga.